I always loved libraries. When I was a kid, I would go and I would hang out there. But it wasn't until I lived in San Francisco in the 90s that I realized that there's some things wrong with these wonderful American library systems, which are publicly supported and are everywhere and have tons and tons of books. In San Francisco, the old Central Library was becoming decrepit, and they decided they were going to take it down and make a new, very modernistic, architecturally significant library. And what they did was they cut out the whole center of the thing and made it like a giant donut, but it was like a 4-story giant donut. And it turns out they had less space for books rather than more in this new library. They swore that they were not throwing out the books, but for at least 10 years, people were finding library books in dumpsters all across San Francisco. So they basically lied about it. And there are other things wrong with it. They made it vertical. When you want a library, you don't want it to be vertical, you want it to be horizontal, so you can go look for one kind of book and another, not have to take the elevator up and down to get 2 different books on the same subject. But the main thing was, I figured it was just odd that they would be throwing out library books. I've since learned that library systems all across the country have been discarding books en masse. If you go to the South Shore Public Library in Sun City Center, Florida, which is a regional library, and it's a little bit bigger than the town libraries, you will find that the bookshelves are half full. There would be room for 3 times as many books, and yet they have been discarding books, and they usually discard older books. And I asked a librarian, why are you throwing out books when you have plenty of space? It doesn't cost anything to keep a book on a shelf. And she said, oh, well, we're keeping the ones that are more popular. Now, think about the incredible stupidity of that. The purpose of a library is to be a repository for anybody that wants something obscure. And so what a library needs to have is more choices, more volume. They need to have 10 books on a different subject, not 0 like they have in some cases in this library system. And so it turns out that this has been done all across the country. I just acquired a book in which a researcher could not find books on his subject of history. It turns out that he had to get books that had been discarded. He went to old bookstores that had been discarded by university libraries all across the country, because none of the university libraries had these books, and it was on an academic subject.
So they don't give the books to prisoners?
They may give some of them, but I'm talking about an incredible volume of books being discarded, to the extent that the library shelves are half full. And it's not only in this place, it's other libraries that I've visited across the country that are doing it. And instead, what you will find is the latest hot fiction bestseller they will have 5 copies of. You know, a popular book by Tom Clancy or someone else. And what that does is it undercuts the profits of the people who are writing books, because the library doesn't just carry 1 copy for free, it carries 5 or 6, so you don't have to go and buy the book. So there's also a tendency toward pandering of the libraries. Basically, they do a lot of non-intellectual stuff to bring people in. They play games for the kids and so on. I wouldn't mind that if they also did things which were more scholarly or less about what I'm finding, if I put it into a phrase, is libraries in America seem to be participating in the dumbing down of America. Period. Europeans have noticed this for a long time. They said Americans are anti-intellectual. Next time I travel abroad, I'm going to check out the libraries in Sweden or Paris or Germany, what have you, and I'll bet you they have better library collections in general.